Well, good evening, everyone, or afternoon, morning, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome to the bullpen. We are back and just thrilled about all that is happening. So, first, I want to just remind you if you have not yet, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever other platform that you gain and gather this content to sure change the trajectory of your life. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, why don't you, if you're enjoying all of the lives when you are watching. Also, we have a very new place, which is our Bullpen Facebook group. You all can go over there, leave your comments, keep up with all of our guests. New and those that are forthcoming. So, today's topic, my goodness, I've really been looking forward to this international dialogue with a powerhouse. I know you hear me say that word often, and maybe even a Titan, because I am a Titan, and birds of a feather definitely flock together. And the gentleman that I want to introduce you to tonight is one that is not only making waves all over the world. And I don't say that just to actually make the statement. I say it because that is exactly what he's doing. And he's changing the trajectory of how people show up in every area of their life. So I want to take a moment and introduce to you and also share with some of you that may have never heard of him, present to others. I want to bring to the platform today because he can certainly tell his story far better than I can. That of Dr. Ruben M. West. Let's welcome him to the platform.
Camille, thank you so much.
Ruben, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic because if I was any better, I'd need two bodies to hold it all in.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I thought about reading your bio and I said, you know what, forget about that. You can certainly tell your story far better than I can. I'm just thrilled about the privilege to meet you. I know we've talked a few times over the years, but I actually had the distinct pleasure of meeting you finally face to face with two gentlemen that I really adore and gainfully respect. That in the form of Dr. Will Moreland and Dr. Vanette Joseph, two of my very dear, precious friends here in the Valley. So I'm on the West Coast. But without all of that, beyond all of that, I want to talk with you because I have been seeing all sorts of things happening with you as it relates to the international space, and we're going to get into that. But today, I want to talk just for a few minutes about collaboration. That was one of the conversations I've had. So what I like to do in the bullpen is kind of transcend from where we left off into the new conversation, and we'll leave something for those folks that are coming right behind you. But without further ado, if you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about Dr. Ruben M. West.
Fantastic. Well, like she said, I'm Ruben West. I am a World Civility Ambassador. I'm a Universal Peace Ambassador. I'm a humanitarian diplomat. The list goes on. And the only reason I say that is because I want us to start thinking about how we're multidimensional. That sometimes we get stuck in an old pattern, an old way, an old frame of thinking, and we're wondering why can't we go to the next level? And the reason why, and somebody catch this, I'm going to just hit you with this right off, is not that you're doing anything wrong. Listen to this. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, but you can be doing the right thing too long. Sometimes life has moved on. Sometimes we're supposed to transition into a new version of ourselves. And because we like the old, the familiar, we don't let go of it. And so as you watch me over the years, you see my introduction change. Why? Because I've changed. I've moved to new positions. I've moved to new levels and new heights, and I've started doing new things. And so some things I don't repeat often. It's who I used to be. Now, I can tell you that I've had a martial arts school for 25 years. I can tell you that I assist in surgery. I can tell you all of that. But what I'd like for you to focus on is some of the things that I'm doing internationally, globally, in an effort to spark you thinking, hey, wait a minute. If he can do things multidimensionally, I can too. You know why? Because God doesn't have respect to persons. Right? He chooses who he uses. And sometimes we can't believe that he can use us on an international front. And those are the exact same people that he's trying to call. But because we're trying to hold on to who we used to be, we won't go and step into it. So that's a little bit about me, and you'll learn more as we go forward.
My goodness, let me say this. You came right in already as a locomotive, and I didn't expect anything less. I want to, you said a lot there. And when I think about the international space, now let me say this publicly. You know, you blew me away when I found out that you were doing surgeries too. I said, my goodness, you've been doing surgeries on the mind for years. But now I find out that you're actually in an operating room. That's a whole nother conversation in itself.
Yeah.
But of course, there's ways to parlay that into our conversation. I want to talk right away. I want to jump in right away around when you say that there's times when you need to change. And many of us are so stuck that we don't really want to change or maybe even know how. So how do we begin to make those steps of change, Ruben?
So the first thing we have to look at is, how do we feel about where we're at right now? You see, I've only ever done what I've loved. I told you I've had a martial arts school for 25 years. I loved doing martial arts. Yes. But at some point, it was time for me to transition. I went into surgery. We helped write the surgical assistant profession. We started the profession in the state of Kansas. We wrote the textbooks, job description, scope of practice, college curriculum. We started a school. We trained people to work in surgery. And in 2016, after doing it for 29 years, I realized God was calling me to do more. Now I have a choice.
Yeah.
Somebody catch this. I have a choice, because when you're excellent at what you do, I didn't say good. When you're excellent at what you do, it's hard to step into something new. You know why? Because we're used to being praised for that accolades. We're used to being told, hey, you're so good at this and you're so good at that, and I love having you in there, that it's hard for us to step down and say, hey, I've got to pick up some new skill. Yeah. I've got to learn again. I've got to become a student again. I've got to submit to someone else to teach me or to guide me again so that I can go in a new direction. So one of the things that stop most people from making that transition is they don't want to go back to the drawing board again. And what they've lost is they've lost faith in themselves.
Yeah.
They've lost faith in their ability to transition. I never really had that problem because everything I've done seemed out of the ordinary already. And I told you, in the state of Kansas, we started the surgical assistant profession. We wrote the textbook, the scope of practice, job description. Now, when I told people after coming back from the Gulf War that I got a chance to assist and that I wanted to be an assistant, they said, well, the way you assist in surgery is you have to be a PA, you have to be a nurse practitioner, or you have to be another doctor. And I said, no, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about a whole new profession. I'm not talking about a physician assistant. I'm talking about a surgeon assistant. And then listen to this, Camille.
Big difference.
Somebody said, how can you start a profession? Well, I said Florence Nightingale started the nursing profession. I mean, every profession was started. It wasn't in the beginning was the word in the attorney profession or the medical profession. Every profession was started. And then I looked at it like this. If God could give someone else the insight and the wisdom to start a profession, why can he not give it to me? And so one of the mistakes we make is we're given an idea, we're given a vision, and then we ask people who are spiritually blind to proofread our vision from God. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. He gave it to you and you only. And watch this. When you received your calling, it wasn't a conference call. So I didn't need their permission to start this profession. You understand? And one of the things that we get caught up with is when we're called to do something else, we go to everybody else. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? What do you think about it? Do you think I should? Do you think I can? You don't need their permission. Then watch this. Notice what they said. You don't have a degree in nursing. You don't have a degree in medicine. You're not a PA. And so I don't have a problem with any kind of education. I go back again and again. I'm in class right now. Exactly. But that wasn't the direction I was given. I was given the direction, start this profession. You get what I'm saying? So did I hire nurses? Yes. Did I have surgeons that came trained for me? Yes. But I didn't go back to school. Sometimes we make the mistake of keep going back to school for the next degree and the next certificate and the next promotion. You know why? Because we believe that we need the validation. Somebody write this down. Validation is for parking tickets. You get me? Validation is for parking tickets. If he gave you the word to start it, he's also going to give you the resources to do it. So what you have to do is you have to make up in your mind and get confirmation from God that you were called to do it, and then rely on him to give you the resources. Now, I got to give it to you.
Keep going.
People say, I'll take action when I get the resources. I'm going to say that again. Most people say, I'll take action when I get the resource.
I am the resource.
God says, I'll give you the resource when you take action. There's no need of giving you the help you need if you're not doing anything.
Right.
And so once I started taking action, I started meeting this person and this person and this person was willing to help and that person was willing to help. And I got all the resources I need. So if you've been given a calling or a new direction, the reason you haven't been given the resources is you're not taking action. Now, I know it can be overwhelming.
Yes.
So let me just give you this and I'm going to turn it back over to her.
Most
people get stuck because they're worried about the last step. When I was going to start the profession, I didn't worry about the last step. Right. When I said I'm going to be a global speaker, I didn't worry about the last step. When I said I was going to be a humanitarian diplomat, I didn't worry about the last step. So here's the key. Don't focus on the last step. Focus on the next step. What's the next step you could take today to move you one step closer to that profession? What's the next step you could take today to move you one step closer to that calling? What's the next step you could take today to move you one step closer to the newest version of yourself? That's how you make that transition.
My God. Now, I love a lot of what you said. One of the things that stands right out for me right away is the fact that validation is for parking tickets. You don't need other people's validation. And more importantly, God gave you the call and he didn't make it a conference call. That's so good. I want to just pause for a moment because my goodness, you're already off to a great start. You're talking about how to reinvent yourself because you've done it many times, many times. So therefore, excuses only satisfy those who give them. So you're not interested in that. And you're not going to be able to pursue anything great with that attitude or with that mindset. So when we're talking about Black excellence and we're talking about making a difference beyond borders, which is really what our conversation is tonight, I want to ask you for just a moment. Let's pause and parenthetically insert. Let's talk about the early days for Ruben.
Yes.
What was it like for you in the beginning? Because I'm sure you probably had some great mentors, some folks that made some tremendous deposits in your world. But how did that begin for you in the early days for Ruben?
It was hard.
Okay.
And let me tell you why it was hard. And this is important to say.
So good.
It was hard because I didn't even know what I was capable of. It was hard because I was surrounded by people that supported me. Right. And they didn't mind if I got ahead. But here's the key. Most people don't mind if you get ahead as long as you don't get ahead of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so what happens is when you go to move to the next version of your life, there's people that aren't going to make the journey. They're not going to make the trip. They're not going to make the transition. And they don't want to see you go. They're not against you. I'm going to be honest. Everybody's not against you. It's not crabs in a barrel. It's just they want you. They like talking to you every day. They like connecting with you. They like being with you. But you were called for a higher purpose. And now it's even hard for you. Watch this. Moving on is simple. It's what you're leaving behind that's difficult. You're leaving behind the phone calls. You're leaving behind the conversations. You're leaving behind the old times and the reminiscing. But you've been called for something greater. And so when you put your flag in the ground and say, no, I'm going to start this profession, or no, I'm going to be a global speaker, or no, I'm going to move on to the next level. That's not easy. And a lot of times we don't know it. I have this program called Silencing the Inner Critic, because we even have a voice in our head that would say, what do you think you are? What do you mean you're going to start this profession? What do you mean you're going to have a martial arts school? What do you mean you're going to be a global speaker? What do you mean you're going to call Les Brown? What do you mean you're going to speak around the world? What do you mean you're going to work with world leaders? And everything it's saying is accurate. It's accurate. You know why? Because that's the current version you have of yourself.
Correct.
See, God wouldn't teach us about faith if we weren't going to have to use it.
Come on.
You got to understand that I'm a parent. I don't teach my children things they're not going to have to use. If I teach them to drive, that's because they're going to have to know how to drive. Right. And so he gives us these instructions, and he teaches us because he knows we're going to have to use these things. So in the early days, it was hard. And one of the things was hard, that was the hardest, was coming to grips with the fact that he chose me. Right. I'm Ruben from Topeka, Kansas. You get what I'm saying? Right. And so when we look at people doing it, and the people in the front, and the people in the limelight, we can look at all of these things that we admire about them. And they did this, and they have that, and they draw all these people. And then, but we don't see ourselves the same way because we see us as common.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now we're trying to reconcile in our mind, how do I go and do that if I'm this? Now, that's why I said you cannot get caught up in the last step.
Mm-mm.
Just what is the next step I can take today?
Right.
Step after step. How do you climb a mountain? One step at a time. And
Time.
then the problem is we keep, and especially me specifically, I would be so focused on who I was,
Mm.
and I kept looking back at who I was,
Mm.
that it was hard to see the progress for where I'm going.
Right.
So what I had to learn was say, okay, every day I'm going to be taking these steps. And guess what? It's like going to the gym. It doesn't matter if you go to the gym today, there's no change. There's no change. There's no need to go and step on the scale. People go to the gym one day and go step on the scale and look in the mirror. No, you didn't make a change in a day. Yeah, you made it on a cellular level, but there's
Right.
nothing to see.
Right.
Go for
Right.
a month and then look back. Go for 2 months and then look back. Go for 3 months. And that's the same thing we have to do when we walk towards this calling.
Yeah.
Over time, we're changing who we are as
Mhm.
we start to get around people that can mold us and shape us and drive us.
Mhm.
Alan Dushman wrote a book. It's called Change or Die.
Yes.
Change or die. And he said people would rather die than change. When I heard that, I thought that was the most crazy thing I'd ever heard. Like, who would that? But then we all know people who've been told, you got to quit smoking. You
Yeah.
got lung cancer. You got to quit smoking. If you don't quit smoking, you're going to what? Die. And then they still keep smoking. You got to quit eating that. You got to quit going to these places. If you keep going here, you're going to go back to prison. They go back again.
Yeah.
But what he said in his book is he said there's a 3-step process. And if you implement these 3 steps in your life, you can make any change. He called them the 3 R's. I'm going to give it to the audience. Number 1 is relate. You have to get around people you can relate with based on the change you want to make.
Yeah.
That's why you ask, who was it that you surrounded yourself with to help you make this change? You're right on the money, Camille. You have to get around people you can relate with.
Yeah.
Then you have to take repeatable action. That's the second R. What are the actions that you can repeat over and over again? Watch this. If you start going to work out at the gym every day with a group of bodybuilders,
Yeah.
over time, you're going to become a what? A
Bodybuilder.
bodybuilder. Only because you're repeating the actions that the bodybuilders repeat. That's why you got to get around people that can help you, you can relate to, and you can repeat what they're doing. And then over time, it reframes your own thinking about who you are and what you can do. And so how did I make that transition? I did exactly what you did. I got around people who can help me. I got around Les Brown. I got around Bill Walsh, America's business expert. I got around Robert Allen, 5-time New York Times bestselling author. He wrote Cash in a Flash, No Money Down. I got around Ambassador Dr. Clyde Rivers, who was already traveling the globe with his I Change Nations. I got around these individuals, and then I learned from them.
Yeah.
I watched them. Oh, and watch this.
Now, Ruben, I want
to. I got to say one more thing.
Okay, go. I want to ask a question about that.
I paid. That's what I want to say. I paid. I didn't come to them and say, "Hey, give me what you have. Give me what you've been working on your whole life, and give it to me for free." No. I paid. What does it cost to work with you? What does it cost to learn from you? Because the more you pay, the more you pay attention.
Yeah.
And the reason we get stuck is we want everything for free. No.
That is so good. That is so good. Because when you talk about, because a lot of people, as you know, we've all experienced, especially being in business, in any level or sector of business, you've had to deal with rejection. So what I want to know from you is, what was it in your thinking? And I say thinking, not necessarily mindset. We're not trying to set anywhere. My question is, what was in your thinking that I'm going for it? I'm going to talk to these gentlemen one way, high hell or water. I'm going for it, and we'll see what the outcome is. What was your thinking?
At some point, you have to have an internal reckoning. First of all, I was in surgery, and this nurse, this black nurse, her name was Edwina Blackman. She pulled me aside and she said, "Ruben, you can speak to people."
Yeah.
I was like, "What?" She said, you could change people's lives. You could talk to people. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I was like, Edwina, what are you talking about? Yeah. I assisted in surgery. I started this profession. I'm doing. She said, "No, you're more than that." And so for me, I thought she was wrong. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Why is she telling me this?" And she said, "Have you not noticed the way people gather around you when you talk? Right. Doctors, nurses, technicians, people love hearing you speak. You could speak to people." and I had to now
Okay.
argue in my mind
Right.
who I knew me to be
Mm-hmm.
and what she was calling me to be.
Mm-hmm.
She said, no, no, you're more than this. You're great at this, but you can do more.
Yeah.
And it was a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finally got the fact that, okay, she could be right. Then my uncle said, you know who Les Brown is? And at the time I didn't. I said, no.
Yeah.
He said, you should look him up and you should give him a call.
Okay.
And I said, okay. So I was driving from Topeka, Kansas to Bloomington, Illinois where I live now. And I remember stopping and I went on YouTube and I looked up Les Brown and there was a video, Les Brown in the Georgia Dome. And he was talking to 80,000 people. And I remember laughing so hard. I said, there's no way he's going to talk to me. That's the craziest thing I ever said. Like, look at this guy. Why would he talk to me? Like, that doesn't even make sense. So I just scrapped it. I just let it go. One day I was in surgery and I was working with this surgeon. We were going to do the first procedure of this type, me and this surgeon in the state of Illinois. Mm-hmm. And so he said, Ruben, when you go home, look up the procedure, research it. If there's any questions, then make sure we ask tomorrow before we start. So we're on the same page. So when I went home, I was taking some notes, just writing down what I was thinking. I walked away. I came back and I read what I wrote. And I said out loud, man, I'm smart. And my wife was like, what'd you say? I said, babe, I'm smart. And she said, I know you're smart. You married me. But what are you talking about? And I said, no, I'm smart. And she said, well, what are you talking about? She said, you started your own profession. You started your own business. You've done all these things. Of course you're smart. Yeah. I said, well, yeah, I didn't know it was hard, though. Like, I wasn't doing it because I thought I was smart. I was just doing it because I didn't know it was hard to start a profession. I didn't know it was hard to start a martial arts school. And then I said, if I'm smart, I'm going to call Les Brown. And she said, who? I said, Les Brown. She said, the one who was married to Gladys Knight. I said, well, I don't know what his relationships were, but I don't. So I looked up on the internet, Les Brown, and I got his answering service, and I asked to speak to him. They said, he's not here. I said, well, if I wanted to give him a message, how would I do it? They said, you could send him an email. He always checks his email. So I sent him an email that day, told him who I was, where I was, that I'm supposed to work with him. The next day after we finished that procedure, I went over and looked at my phone. There was a message from him that said, call me Les Brown.
Wow.
And then when I called him from the parking lot, because I had to sit there and like, what am I going to say when he answered? And I was practicing when he answered, hey, Les Brown, hey, Les, hey, Les. Like I'm working through in my mind what I'm going to say. And when he answered, he said, Les Brown. I said, Les, this is RUBEN West from Illinois. He said, I've been looking for you. Oh, that was the words he said. I've been looking for you.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You see, that's why we have to be willing to step out on faith.
Yes.
Right? But
how did you feel when he said that, though? I've been looking for you, because you were just meeting him for the first time.
It scared me.
Okay, I can see that.
It scared me because all the time I thought, this is who I am.
Yes.
That I have to have somebody else tell me, no, this is who you could be. That I have to have somebody else tell me, like, you look up this person, they can help you become more of who you're supposed to be. Nice. And then I call that person and he says, I've been looking for you.
Oh my goodness.
And so like in that moment, I was really nervous and worried. And we talked for a while. And it was so funny. We talked so long that the security guard in the hospital parking garage came over to check on me, because I was sitting there with my window rolled up, just talking on the phone. I'd been sweating. I forgot to roll the window down, all this stuff. And he tapped like, are you all right? And I was like, oh, yeah. Yes. And when I got home, I said, babe, guess who I just talked to? And she said, who? And I showed her on my phone. She's like, wow. And that's why I want to say to someone listening, when God gives you the assignment, divine, he also gives you the resources. But remember what I told you. You want the resources before you take action. He gives you the resources afterward. If I never would have made the call, if I never would have looked them up, if I never would have took any action, I never would have got anywhere. So watch this, Camille. Most people have faith like this. See this? They have faith like this with their sleeves touching the wrist, right? With their wrist. But faith without works is dead. So don't tell me you have faith and you don't have your sleeves rolled up. Don't tell me you have faith and you're not already putting in the work, because the highest form of faith is preparation. If you really believe you're supposed to go do something, you'll start working towards it.
Yes, absolutely. I love that, because when you think about, ultimately you have somebody that's spoken to your life that said, hey, no, have you ever thought about, we forget that there's already people speaking into our life long before we take a step. I love what you said about take the next best step, but that was a family member that made that deposit that said, hey, you'd be great at this. Have you ever heard of? So you take that leap and you have that conversation with Les Brown, one of the most prolific speakers of all time. I mean, if you don't know who he is, you've been living under a rock, because he's well known all around the world, and really making a huge impact and influence in people's lives. So you had that first conversation with him. Now, we're not even going to get to the fact that you talked about the pay part, because when you pay, you do pay attention. But also, the only place you can go where you don't pay first is a restaurant. Right. Everything else you have to pay first.
Right.
So you have that conversation with him. He says to you, he knocks you off your socks by saying, I've been looking for you. And you take that in. You have that conversation. We're talking about collaboration. We're talking about for just a couple minutes, but more importantly, we're talking about Black excellence worldwide and shining beyond borders. So before we get into how you've been able to shine beyond borders, you were able to shine within your quarters first and locally. So, and how did that conversation with Les Brown, what did the first conversation go? How was that first conversation? What did it go like? And with him being so remarkable and remarkably well known, were you intimidated in any way?
No, I wasn't intimidated by that factor. I was never intimidated in a comparison sense, because I didn't compare myself to Les Brown, and I still don't. I'm RUBEN West. You know me?
Yeah.
So I don't really compare. I was intimidated by the fact that I was called out of something I was excellent at. We started the profession. You know how hard it is to walk away when you wrote the textbook?
Well,
you know
because you were the ceiling.
But yeah, I'm at the top.
You have to go somewhere else and be the floor.
Exactly.
So that's what I mean by like what that dialogue was like. Now that, not that you're any less of an expert in the space where you've mastered at the ceiling, but now you've got to not only humble yourself, and that's a great place to say that we have to find those places where it's necessary for us to humble ourselves, even if you do know what to do already.
Right.
But you have that conversation with him. There is no comparison, because comparison, in my opinion, is a calling killer. So I would, of course, never say that. But I mean, there had to be some level of whether it might not be intimidation, but maybe just some level of quandary, or
I think there was a level of reservation.
Okay.
He invited me to this training he was having.
Okay. Excellent.
And so I went to the training.
Mm-hmm.
I was confused, so I was late. I missed the first day, so I come the second day, and I'm there early, and there's nobody in the room, and I hear him coming around the corner. I can hear I knew his voice, and he was talking. He said, "Did that guy Ruben ever show up?" And he comes around the corner, and I'm here, and he's talking. And so then we're in there, and we're doing these exercises. And he says, "It's a 3-minute exercise. He's going to call you up, and he's going to tell you something to speak about." And so he called me up. I said what I was going to say, and he walks by me, and he said, he leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Me and you are going to share the stage together."
I love it.
And
you let it sit in.
It's like, what did he just say? Like, how could this be? Like, you see, because this is your first day meeting me. What could you know in one day that we're going to share the stage together? We've had so many conversations since then. One of the things he said, "Ruben, you have the gift."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, like he says these little things. Ruben, it's in you. Like you have it. Some people have to work to get him in them, but you already have it. You just have to work on it. You just have to develop it. You just have to polish it. Like he says these little things. They're little incentives, right?
Like
to keep pushing.
Okay.
You know, encouragements. And then he calls me one day and he says, I'm speaking Friday in California, and somebody didn't show up, and I want you to come out and be on the stage with me. Wow. And I was like, really?
Wow.
And I did that. Then he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm going to South Africa. I want you to come over and I want you to be on stage with me." It's 5,000 people, and we did that in South Africa. And then he told me this. He said, "Ruben, when you leave this country, they're going to eat you up." Like, see, he said, when you
right up,
when you leave this country, they're going to eat you up. You have something special, and the problem is you're around people who think they see it all the time, so they don't notice it. But the minute you leave, they're going to eat you up. And so those were so many encouraging things that he said to me, step after step after step, that kept me pressing, and that kept me focused, and that kept me digging and driving to go to that next level.
Mm-hmm. So you had that first conversation with Les Brown. Is it safe to say decades ago, or
It was 2013.
not that long ago. Okay, so 10 years. It's right at 10 years, a decade ago. I appreciate the fact that you stressed the importance of you were very comfortable and confident in your own space where you were at that time, but yet you were willing to learn and willing to take the leap. So you took that leap, you had that conversation, and now there is a plethora of opportunities that are coming your way because you've created a connection. So when we talk about collaboration and expanding our borders, that collaboration, that relationship, I like to call it a divine connection because that's what it sounds like to me.
Indeed.
When you all began that divine connection, what did he give you some practical or pragmatic encouragement to work your craft or to hone your craft and or to expand and improve?
He gave me a lot of things that I could do to get better. I took his training. I was one of his platinum speakers.
Mm-hmm.
But most of what I learned from him outside of that, because what you have to look at is everybody gets, quote unquote, the same training.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, there's, but there's certain people who do more with that training. Right, because
the hours in the day we get all the same hours of the day.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. But certain people are going to believe it different. They're going to work on it different. For me, what I was motivated about was seeing him in action. What I was motivated about was watching him do what he does. I'm a very good at reverse engineering processes. Remember, I told you we wrote the surgical assistant.
Yeah.
I didn't have any training in surgery or medicine, but I still watched the doctors work. I was in there. I would ask them questions, and then I'd go back and write, right, so that I could train people how to do it. So I got a chance to watch him in action, and then I also know that the biggest mistake we can make is to try and copy. Right. Remember this, and somebody
let that sit in.
Yeah, you see, somebody's got to catch this. Remember, the voice will always have an echo, but the echo will never have a voice. You understand? Right. So if I try and be Les Brown, I'm just echoing what Les Brown is saying. But I can be the best RUBEN West. Plus, my calling is not the same calling as Les Brown.
There it is.
You understand? And so I didn't ever try and be him. I work with him. I go do my thing. I come back. I learn a little bit more, ask him more questions. He gives me some suggestions of advice. I go back and do my thing. I feel like I can always learn. I can always get more. I learn a lot from just watching him because I have a reverse engineering mind. I don't need to have the lesson. I just need to watch, and then I can break down the process on my own.
Yeah.
And I say, oh, I get it. I understand. So he's taught me many more times than he's ever laid eyes on me because I just in listening to him, I learn the formula. I learn what he's doing. I see behind the curtain, if you will. And so then I take it and go do my own thing. What I also knew, though, is that my calling was different. My calling was different. A lady told me one time, she was just prophesying to me, and she said, I was so excited, and they were asking me what my goal was. And I was very intrigued by Les. I was intrigued by him being on the stage. And remember, I told you the first video I saw was him in that huge dome. So there was like 60, 70, 80,000 people. So that was my goal. Not because I wanted to be like Les, but because I felt like if I could talk to that many people, I can impact that many people at one time. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not ego. It's just like, that just made sense to me. And then she told me, she said, you have to get used to the power of a handful. A handful of what? She said, a handful of people. And I said, no, I want to be in 60,000 though. He was in the Georgia Dome. You know what I'm saying? You're talking about a handful. She said, no, that's not your calling.
At least not at that time.
Right. That's not your calling. I had to understand. She said, you're called to sit among kings and presidents and leaders of the world. And then when you do that, you're not limited to 60, 70, 80,000 people. You got a whole country, 50 million.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you inoculate them with the information that God gave you to give them, now they go and tell the country. So I got a chance to sit down with the president of Burundi, Africa. I got a chance to sit down with the vice president in Guyana. And listen, guess how many people were in the room?
But you're zooming past that already. Okay, go ahead. Tell me how many.
But I'm just saying there was only a handful. You understand?
Yeah,
There
yeah.
wasn't a lot of people, and you have to get used to.
Mm.
Oh, I'm just can't. You have to get used to doing it for what you know,
Yeah.
not for the show. You understand? Because when you go into the room with world leaders, you don't take your phone. You're not doing a selfie. There's nothing to show. They take all recording devices. There's a sign on the door that says no cell phones allowed, and they take it all away from you. Why? Because they don't want to be recorded without their knowledge. They don't want you sneaking a recording of them. So they take all of that stuff from you. So all you can do is give them what you were called to deliver. And then at the end, they may let you bring back one phone and take a picture. You understand? So a lot of times on my Facebook, on my Instagram, on my Twitter, there's nothing to show. I can't post these pictures. They're not there. Exactly. So I had to get used to realizing that God has to be proud of what I did, not man.
Yes, I love that. I'm so intrigued by the fact that I really appreciate and value the fact that you are a man of faith, as I am a woman of faith. After you've had some tremendous modicum of success, and now you step into this new arena with world leaders, literally world changers from other countries, and cultivating more relationships. As you enter into this space, because you said they take your phone, it's no more about showing what you're doing. It's more of a privacy where it's a controlled environment, so they can ensure there's no unauthorized recordings or proof of what happened. My question for you, when you take all of that in, have you had a chance to take it in, Ruben? I mean, because I've seen you, we've not even, I want to jump further into the Black excellence because of you going into so many different spaces multiculturally, but more so for our people. And you're making a major impact. So I know that you talked about the smaller room. Sometimes people get so caught up in they need to have a bigger number. I like to say there's value in one. You know, one is a powerful number, and it is a number all alone. When you go into these spaces, what is one of the first things that you look at, or you look to gain in the conversations or in the room? What's the first thing you're thinking about or you look at?
Shut up is the first thing I think. You see, because we're so naive, we think that we're coming in with all the knowledge.
Yeah.
And when you meet with a world leader, people think, well, if you got a chance to talk with the president, what would you say? I'd tell him this, I'd tell him that. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? So what you have to realize is you have to go in with a level of true humility.
Yeah.
Right. And say, you know what, first of all, thank you for taking this time to meet with me. I appreciate you taking your time. I honor you and acknowledge you for the work that you're doing for your country, for the space that you're serving in. And I want you to know that any way that I can help, I would love to. And then they ask you, okay, tell me what you do. It's not a 10-minute thing.
Yes.
It's not a 10-minute thing. It's a 2-minute thing. And watch this. We think that the president has a checkbook. We think that we can ask him for something. They're going to write a check to us. They don't have one. It's not the way it works. So what you have to do is you have to tell them what you're an expert at and how you can be of service. Listen to what I said, how you can be of service, and then let them know that if you ever find the need of these services, I would love to see how I could support you, your government, this organization. Now watch, here's the power. They know more about what you can do to help than you do. So when you say, hey, would you help me do this one thing?
Yeah.
That's one thing. If you just put it out there and they see you're genuine, they start thinking of 10 things. Well, you know what? Let me hook you up with the Minister of Finance. Let me hook you up with the Minister of Tourism. Let me hook you up with, you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They know much more than you know, but you thought you knew more than they did. So you came in talking. The best thing you could do is learn the listening. Right? And if you ever watch a world leader, they are masterful at listening. Yeah. The president of Burundi said he talks less than anyone in the room. Why? Because he's taken the best knowledge from everyone in the room, and then he makes his decisions based on the knowledge of everybody that he put around him. You see? So his skill set is in listening. Most of us, our skill set is in talking. And so we got to go tell everybody what we think we know and what we think we do and what we think we have. And it's not necessarily the case. So what I've learned is I have to be quiet and listen and see, right? Get that understanding of where I could be of service.
I'm thinking immediately about the conversation I remember Oprah said that she had years ago. And she had the conversation with the president of South Africa. You
Mhm.
remember, you probably remember this conversation. And she said that in the conversation while she's there, they're getting ready to have breakfast. And she asked him, well, what can I do? Or she said, never mind what can I do? The first thing she said before we get to the question she asked, she said, I came just to listen. It was she called it 30 conversations, and it was a breakfast, lunch, and dinner that she had with the president of South Africa for 10 days. So that was the 30 conversations that she had with him. And in the midst of this conversation, she makes a statement rather, I really am thinking about, I'd love to have a school for girls. And what does he do? He says, oh, really? Okay. So because she realized early on, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen for 10 days. I'm going to listen. This is on day one. And I'm just going to glean and learn. She made that statement, and he got right on the phone the very next day, connected her, made an introduction. And that's how her school for leadership was birthed, from that one conversation.
Exactly.
So hearing you say that is really just just a validation, if you will, or confirmation, more so, not validation, but a confirmation of how it can happen just like that. And more or less, I want to ask you, when you had that conversation, when it was asked of you, what is it that you do? What did you tell them
It depends on what I heard.
in that
Right?
conversation? The first,
Right. It depends on what I heard. Remember, I do multiple things.
I know,
But,
right?
well, listen to this, but watch this, and this is for everybody. A world leader is never looking for number two. They're
Mm,
looking for number one and number one only.
mm,
So you have to understand what it is that you're going to bring to the table and
mm.
what it is that you're going to offer. Like what are the services that you're going to say, I'm the best in the world at this.
Mm, mm.
Right? Because that's all they're looking for. They're not looking for number five to come help their country. They're looking for the best in the world at this. And
Right.
and that's not the time. Watch this. That's not the time to go sell your dream. Well,
Mm.
I'd like to become a, you know what I'm saying? Because watch this.
Better not.
The Dr. Clyde Rivers asked the president of Burundi when he was being driven by his driver. The guy was speeding, going around the curves, honking, flashing lights. People were jumping out of the way. And when he got to meet with the president, he got in with the president. He asked him, why does your driver drive like this?
Mm.
Listen to what he said. We only have so many hours in office.
Oh wow. Oh,
Right?
oh wow.
You should not wait on them. They should wait on you. We only have so many hours. You
Mm.
understand? So
Yeah.
their conversations are short, and what you're bringing to the table, what you have to offer, the service that you could provide, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to know how you're going to do it. And going back to the point of this conversation, you have to know who your collaborative partners are so
Yeah.
that you can fulfill that whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so if I say I'm going to come and help bring civility, I wrote this book called Campaign Civility,
Mm-hmm.
How to Win the Hearts of the People to Win the Election.
Mm-hmm.
And I started this organization in Kenya, Civility for Kenya. And so I have to know, who can I collaborate for in all areas of civility? Who can I get with leadership civility, and with family civility, with school civility, with government civility? I can't cover all of that. So I already have to have the collaborative partners in line, or be willing to collaborate in line.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You understand? So,
Yes, I do.
so that collaboration is important, because you can never do everything. And what they're looking for is, who is this person really? We've been trained to come forward with some perfect spiel, our 1 minute elevator pitch and all that stuff. You guys understand that when you get in front of a diplomat, or when you get in front of a leader, they already know everybody's going to say that. They don't even listen. They give that no real credibility. They let you go right on past that. And now they want to get to something for real, because they know you're going to try and say whatever you need to say. But I'm much more authentic than that. And what I try and be, listen to this, I try and be open to the voice. Like, my job for being there is to pass on this information that they need to hear, not from me.
Yeah.
From Topeka. I've been given an opportunity to be invited into this space.
Mm-hmm.
And God gave me the opportunity. I mean, the reason he's sending me in there is because he has a message. He has an idea. He has something he wants to share. And if I let my agenda get in the way, I don't bring forth what he wants me to say.
Right. So I want to ask you if for all of our listeners, those folks that are listening, the bullpen is really designed more so for men. It's an opportunity for men to hear from other men.
Sure.
It was birthed because I got tired of hearing women trying to tell men how to conduct their lives. And while we, as women, birth men and bring them to the world as a gift, I believe men need to hear from other men that are not only changing lives, but more so how to do it in their families, in their community, and even in their churches. So, what I want to ask you is talk to our men and tell them how do they begin, no matter what phase they are. You said it earlier on at the beginning of the show, what they can begin to do now. I want you to talk to our men about what they can do now to operate in their Black excellence so that they can expand beyond their borders.
The first thing you have to do is figure out who you are.
Yeah.
You see, listen, this is who I am every day. I'm a balanced, empathetic, sensitive leader, connecting on a divine level, creating new opportunities and guiding millions toward their God-given dreams. Mm-hmm. That's who I am all day, every day. But it took me some work to come up with that. I had to figure out who I was. Now, once I figured out who I was, and I teach that in my Silencing the Inner Critic program, and I'll let everybody have it for free. It's a downloadable manual. You'll do the screen scan codes. It's me walking you through the training so that you come up with your statement. Now, once you do that, you start to understand who you are and what you've been created to do. As men, we've been created to lead. As men, we've been created to nurture. As men, we've been created to train. And so how do we do that? The power of death and life is in the tongue. It's how we speak to people. It's how we encourage them. It's how we lead them. It's how we train them. It's how we support them. It's how they show up. My son, Robinson, is now 11. He's been an international speaker since he was 7 years old. He spoke in Kenya on stage for the first time at 7. And you know how I got him up there? Every day since he's been a baby, when I wake him up, I say, "You're full of greatness and possibility. You're full of greatness and possibility. You're full of greatness and possibility." That's how I wake him up in the morning. And I did it so much, he started believing it. He'd say, "I'm full of greatness and possibility." As a matter of fact, this year he went into 6th grade and it's junior high, 6th, 7th, and 8th. He ran for president of the student council of the junior high in the 6th grade. And I said, "Robinson, what makes you think an 8th grader would vote for you?" Because I wouldn't when I was in the 8th grade. He said, "Well, Dad, I'm full of greatness and possibility." Wow. Now, watch this. Did he win? No, he didn't win. He said, "It's okay that I didn't win this time, but I'm always going to put myself out there. I can always learn from the process, and people learn about my leadership skills." So as men, what we have to do is we have to understand that when we speak to people positively, when we look for the good things in them, when we bring out who they are, not who other people have told them they are or who society says they are, but we have to have the ability to speak to them in a way that we call forth who God says they are. This is who you've been called to be. This is what you've been called to do. And it may take some work to get there, but you can still do it. When we do that, we have the ability to change our homes. We have the ability to change our circumstances. We have the ability to change the churches that we go to, the people that are around us, and then people start seeing us differently. The other thing I would always say is you have to be in a position to serve. Serve. Like, no matter what position I am in, I always realize I'm a servant first. I serve first. So most of the time, people have gotten experience with me. It's in some form of service. I was serving somewhere. I was helping someone. I was doing something, and they saw me. And then when they saw me, they got a chance to know me. They called me over. They started talking to me, and they say, "Hey, you know what? I would love to have you come do this. I would love to have you work with us on this. I would love to collaborate with you on this," because they realized that it wasn't all about me. It's how I can help them too. So as men, we have to teach the younger generation to serve. They can't be what they can't see. So if they see us serving, they'll learn that there's some value in service, and they'll be able to reap the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm. That is powerful. What I find a very common thread with all of the men that I've had so far is I hear serving, serving, serving. And that is certainly the common thread of action for those of you that are listening and that will share this message with those men that you know in your life. How powerful that is with your son and what you told him who he is. So now he has a constant, not only reminder, but the deposit. So then when life shows up for
Because it's
him,
coming.
it's going to show up.
It's coming.
He can remind himself of who he knows that he is. Not only who his earthly father has told him that he is, but also who God has, who has actually called him to be. Here's my last question for tonight. I want to ask you this, and before I do, what's coming up next for you? What are you up to? What's coming down the pike, or what are you working on?
You know, believe it or not, I was in Dayton, Ohio, and
Yeah.
I was there with Professor Kennedy Waningu from Kenya. He's the founder and president of the International College for Peace Studies.
Okay.
And he was coming to the U.S., and he was in New York at the United Nations. Then he went to Costa Rica. Then he went to Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
I said, I can't let you be this close to me and I not come and meet you, help you, be of service to you. So I got him, picked him up, took him to all his meetings. He was meeting with the mayor, the city commissioners, some different things, because he wanted to bring the International Peace March to Dayton, Ohio, because they have a peace museum, all this stuff. And I was with him all day. I said, sir, don't carry nothing. Don't pick up nothing.
Right.
Please allow me, because I have to, if they don't see the elevation that I put towards you, they'll never treat you the way you should be treated. You understand? So they have to understand who's coming. Yeah. Let me introduce you. Let me talk for you. And then let me turn it over to you. He said, thank you, my brother. And so I did that. I did it all day. We went to lunch. I took care of them. I just feel like that's the hospitality we owe people that are coming to our country.
Yeah. Yeah.
He went back to Kenya. Watch this. He messaged me. He said, Dr. West, I just met with the board, and we're going to launch the Dr. RUBEN West Leadership Library here at the International College for Peace Studies. Wow. And we want you to be the global envoy to represent us at the United Nations, at the European Union, at the African Union. We want you to go and speak on our behalf, and all of these different things. We're inaugurating you January 21st. You'll see it online. January 21st, I'm being inaugurated as the global ambassador for the International College of Peace. I'm going to be inaugurated as a humanitarian diplomat, humanitarian negotiator. I'm finishing up my training. There's so much more. But all I really want you to see is I was just serving. I was carrying his briefcase. I was opening some doors. You understand? Yeah. That's all I was doing. I was like, there's a way you should be treated. He said, Dr. West, you cannot come back to Kenya the way you've come before. We have to receive you as an ambassador. As a matter of fact, I have a special parking pass when I'm at the airport, because I pick up all the ambassadors and diplomats from other countries. So we're going to receive you as an ambassador diplomat, so that we're going to pick you up in the car, give you the escort, take you to where you need to be. We want you to be the keynote address at the graduation that you're coming to, like on and on and on. And wow, I was just serving. All from one, just being of service. You understand? Yeah. And so what's coming up for me is that amazing opportunity. And then I'm also planning on taking a group of people to Kenya with me in July. I take a group every year because it opens up doors. I do an empowerment event over there, 200, 300 people. We go on safari. We've done business connection events. Yeah. And so that's coming up in July. And so it gives people plenty of time to prepare. So anybody interested in that, if I can give them the website, they can go to www.thebesttripever.com, www.thebesttripever.com. And there you'll find out all the information, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. But it opens up so many minds, and it opens up so many doors. Wow, that is powerful. My goodness. Well, there you have it. Be seen serving. That's what I heard. Be seen serving, and every other door that is predestined for you will open by being seen serving. So, Dr. West, I wanted to just ask very quickly, what's the lesson that took you the longest to learn? That God keeps giving you the same lesson until you learn it over and over again. Right? So if you find yourself in the same situation over and over again, you haven't learned the lesson. If you find yourself in the same relationship over and over again, you haven't learned the lesson. If you find yourself in the same debt over and over again, you haven't learned the lesson. God keeps giving you the same lesson over and over again until you learn it. And so at some point you have to stop and ask yourself, why am I keep getting the same lesson? and the same test over and over again? And the answer is simple. You haven't learned it, because once you learn it, you stop doing the same thing. You stop putting yourself in the same situation. You stop making those same decisions. So that's the lesson that it took me the longest to learn, because I kept thinking it was out there. The reason I keep ending up here is because they are doing that. No, the reason you keep ending up there is because you keep having to go back for the same lesson over and over again, because you won't learn it. So is listen and learn, or don't listen and learn the hard way. And that's over and over again.
Isn't that the truth? My goodness, one that we have all had to learn, unfortunately, the hard way. But I love that. And let me just say this to you. It has been my tremendous pleasure to have you tonight. And you have left us with so much that we can get into motion and into action tonight, right away. But I do thank you for this privilege and my pleasure to have you tonight on the bullpen. And we thank you. We thank you so much. And we are sending you lots of great energy, lots of love. And we want to see only the next of the best that is still yet to come for you. And so again, it's been my delight and my pleasure to have you. And we thank you. We salute you until we meet again.
Thank you so much. And thank you to your audience. I appreciate you for tuning in.
My pleasure. So listen, I got a very quick well theory tonight, and that is be seen serving. Just be seen serving. Be seen serving. Be seen serving. Be seen serving. If you've not heard that common thread throughout most of these shows over the last several weeks, I'm going to tell you, you heard it. You heard it not from me, but from a person, an ambassador for multiple countries around the world, and not only in the United States, but in other places. And you heard it from him. Doors just open for you when you are seen serving. So I just really want to remind you tonight that we all need divine connections. God has his way on how he connects us. Just like I said before with the body. The body is made up of many members, but we're all called to do something different. So go on out, be seen serving. And I do thank you for joining this episode of The Bullpen. It's been my delight and my pleasure, along with my privilege, to serve you in the realm of being your host. So guess what? Go on over to the Facebook group of The Bullpen Show. Follow so you can stay connected to Ruben, Dr. Ruben, and all of the other guests that we've had, along with those that are coming. And I'll see you on the very next episode. Have a good night.